Welcome back to McCarthy Performance. I had a few people asking me questions about seats um, and what seats you should use on a 781 oval port head. Now, that depends on what size valve you're going to put in that head. Now, the 781s were never intended for a 188 exhaust valve. Most people put a 188 exhaust valve in them. You can do that. You got to be careful with the seats. If you look in the book for recommendation on seats, you can sometimes get yourself in trouble. Um, and the reason being is because they put something in there that, depending on how the head was casted, may work and it may not. My rule of thumb is to go a little bit more than the actual outer diameter of the valve. And in some cases, if the 45 covers it, that's all I care about. Now, you might disagree with that. That's okay, because if you've ever cut through a head and destroyed it or spent half the day fixing it, you'll change your opinion on that. As my concern is that anything past the 45 is irrelevant. If it's a 45, 55, whatever valve angle seat it is, that's where you want the hardness. Anything past that is pretty much irrelevant. And if you're pressing into a weak uh, head and you've already got it cut out bigger, what's the gain? Now, I don't go any deeper than I have to. Sometimes, if I can get the seat that I want, um, I'll drive them in and then I'll face them off. So, and on Pontiacs and Fords, on the short side radius, if you're not careful, if you go down as far as they supply the seat, sometimes they give you. I like to have the floor nice and solid, and it gets kind of spooky on some of them. And I'll sometimes not go down as far as the seat that they recommend or supply. So I'm not trying to confuse you. Most of the time, the recommendation on seat depth, I usually measure it, but you can look at the book, but look at the book and be careful. I guess that's what I'm saying. I buy a lot of seats from a lot of different manufacturers. A lot of them are just blank seats, which means that there's nothing done to them. And I profile them. And a lot of times, if I get into a aluminum head where I have to repair it, and I want to go like 2 thousandths over, 3 thousandths over, I have adjustable cutters, and I'll do that, and I'll turn these on the lathe. So, and of course, even with iron, that's ductile iron. This is, I believe, a powdered metal seat. So I'll do that with them too. Um, I wasn't going to make a video on this, but I guess I thought that, why not? I buy a lot of stuff from CHE. I like their stuff. They're great people to deal with. I also deal with SBI because I got a great big catalog in front of me. I also have dealt with PEP in the past, and I still deal with these people. Of course, I've gotten seats from Dart and Brodex, and it just depends on the situation, who's got it. You know, sometimes the head supplier has the seats. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just make them. So, I always try to get the seat that the size I want. And if I call up a manufacturer like Brodex or Dart and they have it, or CHE's got something, um, usually some of the companies I get, you just get big chunks of material and you end up just about making them, which isn't a problem. So that's kind of the deal on the seats. Getting back to the guides. Now, I told you to be careful because there's two different sizes of guides. And if you look in this book here on the big blocks, on the exhaust sides, I think about 90, 88, 90, they changed them. Okay, so this is bigger at the bottom and it's smaller at the top. So this guide, being that it's a newer style guide for a big block exhaust side, you have to drive this one out, down, towards the combustion chamber, down. Now, I ordered these by mistake, but they're here now and I've got them, so they're good to make a little video here to explain it. This would be a newer or an older model style here, and it's a little bit smaller. Yeah, a little bit smaller. These ain't very accurate, okay, but they're in the book and they gave you a dimension. What's the big difference is probably the easiest way you'll tell what exhaust guides in the exhaust side, if you have to drive it out, is going to be this dimension right here. And you should be able to measure this fairly easy. Okay, that's an old one. That's the old style. This is the new style. There's 8 thousandths difference. So that means that this shoulder here that's a little bit bigger, that's going to have to be drawn down out of the head towards the combustion chamber for the new style guide, is smaller here all the way. So you'll be able to measure this on the head without taking it out. If you get that measurement that I just showed you, which is almost 7 thousandths smaller, this head is thicker here. It's got a double step on it, and you should be able to measure it. You should be able to tell which guide's in that head before you have to drive it out, because the older style, again, you're going to drive up towards the valve cover. The newer style, you're going to drive down towards the combustion chamber piston side. So I wanted to say something more about that, trying to make that clear. Here is what I found is one that I drove out. This is an old style guide. And this has been in ahead since, when it was made. There's not a lot of rust on here. There's not a lot of erosion. So, if the thing's been in salt water, yes. I could see where this could get eroded enough that you wouldn't want to put a 502 guide in it. And if that was the case that you were concerned about it, I guess you could put a K-line, which are still up here. You do a thin wall liner on it. So I had some people asking about this, and I thought I'd bring it up. I used to do a lot of seats. I used to do a lot of oval port heads. And when I say a lot for a one-man shop in this area. And I got into more repair on aluminum heads. And there's nothing worse than getting in the middle of a job and finding out you can't get a seat, or, you don't have it. So I have, for a one-man shop, I have more seats than I know what I have. I've got a lot of seats, and I just bought out an old warehouse, machine shop / warehouse, that I've got a fair amount of seats. So I don't usually have a problem with wanting to do something or having to modify a seat. Usually I'll have it. And if I do a job and I need one, I usually buy 2 or 3, because if I destroy one, I have another one. And then if I do a job, chances are I'll have another seat for that particular job, and it comes in handy to have the stuff here at the shop. And it's not expensive, so these are a little bit expensive. That's beryllium and copper alloyed there. Um, you know, but the ductile iron ones, I could get them through CHE. So if I was going to do a hardened exhaust, and then I wanted to put an intake in it, and if I didn't want to put a hardened intake in it, which a lot of times with SPI and these companies here, if you got to do an intake side, you're going to probably end up putting a powdered metal seed in there, which is no big deal. But if you wanted to, I've got ductile iron here. I can take a big seat and then cut it down and put it in there if I want ductile iron, which one to the other don't really matter to me too much, as long as we're putting something in there that's halfway decent. A lot of the stuff that I do is for hot rod and limited street use. So I know some guys are asking about hardened guides and guides that they send me. I know some of these you can get hardened. My tooling cuts through that stuff fairly easy. I don't really want to wear out my tooling on other stuff. And these are a lot of this stuff that I use in conventional iron is just spiral grooved. And I've talked about that before, and I believe that helps quite a bit. If we're worried about some kind of longevity, this can go both ways. I've seen guys say that they wear out quick, and I've seen guys say they wear forever. So it really depends on where you set the clearances and how much oil you're getting and what the alloy is. At the end of the day, we really don't know what the alloy is because a lot of this stuff's coming out of different countries. So, at the end of the day, we hope the stuff that we're putting in is at least comparable to the stuff we are removing. But I've had really good luck with manganese bronze, and it's a little bit harder on the tooling, but I'm running diamonds. I pretty much ream everything and then finish it off with a diamond hone. On the spiral groove stuff, not so much. This stuff comes fairly close. I run a ream through it. I'll run a brush through it, and that's pretty much it on that. But when they're not spiral grooved, I usually hone them. And I usually hone them a little bit on the looser side. That's just me, so I get a little bit more oil down there. These are spiral grooved, so I don't worry about that as much. So I thought I'd put this little video together and maybe clear up some things. And, this is the way I do it. The guy that helped me along in the machine shop business was somebody that's been in the business for an awful long time. So, I kind of used his recommendations and his opinions, and if it worked for him, I figured it worked for me. And as I got into it, maybe some things have changed, but pretty much I've got the way I do it is kind of the way I do it. I haven't really changed over the years. Like I said, I've really cut down a lot on putting oversized valves and oval port heads, and I get it. There's guys out there that want this stuff done, and you always should try to find a better head if you're going to rebuild it. And I've been on that too, but what's hard nowadays is when a guy looks at a set of import heads and he can buy a complete set of heads for less than you can put in his original heads and rebuild them. They always come up and say, well, I can buy a set of heads for $1,000 and I'm not going to spend $1,000 or better to have you go through the heads. Well, it's really hard to argue with that logic, because even though the people in the business may know differently than something he don't know, he don't know that the heads that he's buying for that kind of money, they usually need to be gone through. And that requires somebody that has a machine shop to do that. And you get into a quality of parts, and that can be kind of dicey too, because some of the quality of parts we're getting are coming from the same place that are making the Chinese or import heads. Let's not throw China under the bus, but China, India, wherever the heads are coming from. So, that mindset's really hard to beat. It's hard to compete with it too. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I dislike about this business is at the end of the day, I absolutely do the best I possibly can with what I have to work with in front of me. And time is time, and it takes time to do this stuff. And if you're competing with a guy that's getting a set of heads from China or wherever, or India, and they're trying to compete with your labor rate, and you trying to justify it, it's kind of hard. So I'm not going to get on my soapbox anymore, but that's what really takes the fun out of this business. I had a customer that wanted the original heads and didn't care what it took to make them, but they wanted them right. And at the end of the day, there was no explaining why my heads cost more than a set of Chinese import heads. And I really enjoy working for them kind of people, but there's a lot of people out there that are not educated on this. We all, I guess, some of us gravitate to the lowest price part. And I get that because, most of us work hard for our money and we don't want to blow it. But on the other side of the coin, I work really hard for my money and I don't feel like giving a set of heads away. So, okay, I didn't cover this on the first video, but probably put it in this one here. Just gonna make some videos until we got valves in these. So, I put a little bit of lead on the guide, like I said before, and break it with the belt sander. And I tap them in, center them up eyeball and just tap them, and they'll kind of go where they want to go and center themselves fairly good. I've also pressed them in, started pressing them in with the seat and guide machine after I finish them, and that works okay. But I start them with the air chisel driver. And then once I get them started and I know they're pretty much centered just by looking down them, they're pretty damn close. Then I'll drive them down with the air chisel. I give it a few bumps. I don't try to drive it all at once because you can shatter the guide, what's left. So I get it kind of close, and then it'll probably be quite noisy. I center up on it, and I make sure that I'm centered straight up on it, and I'm pushing down on it, and I can kind of feel that I'm level with the top of the guide. I'm going to stop right there. Usually, sometimes when you drive on them, the end will mush out a little bit. These are cut back a little bit. But if you run them all the way to the bottom of the existing guide, you'll split them. We're going to stop right there because I don't want to destroy them. I don't want to chip nothing. I can trim them back, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'll show you where we're at. I'll set my cutter and I'll go in and I'll touch these up. Okay, it's really tight in here and it's hard for me to get you good video and me operating the machine. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to touch all these. I'm going to set 0 on the gauges off the first one. Then I'm going to go through and I'm going to touch them all up. And then I'll take a picture or I'll let you look at that once we get going here. Okay, we got them done. We're going to be doing the exhaust next. We're going to hit them with a little bit of a wire wheel. Make sure there's no burrs on this. Of course, we'll ream them to size, but that's what they look like. I like to hit them with a wire wheel. It knocks off any of the burrs on the edges. So that's where we are on that. Okay, we've got a drill here, and it's got a brush on the end of it, and that's what I'm going to do. I'll hit it with this, and this will take off any of the loose metal off the edges. I hit the exhaust a little bit because we'll be drilling that out, but there's a lot of, even though these went through the hot tank, they've been sitting and they're starting to rust a little bit, so we got them pretty much all taken care of. We'll start on the exhaust side, and it's not too aggressive, but it does break some of the edges slightly off of them, and that's what we're all about doing with that particular operation. We'll probably may have to ream these or lightly run the diamond through them. We'll have to check it with the valve. We haven't got to that point yet. Okay, we're pretty much all set now to do a valve job. So we're going to probably leave this video here. I don't have a lot of memory, so I can't put too much longer on these videos, and then I get myself in trouble. If you get any enjoyment out of these videos, please subscribe to my channel, hit the like button. I guess the next video will be me doing a valve job on these and probably surfacing them. Thank you for watching. Got that all set up. Got a cutter that mirrors the profiles pretty close on this exhaust side of the head, and we're cutting them. These are inducted hardened from the factory. My cutter is kind of doing all right on it, but not as good as I'd like. Probably going to go in and touch them up with a stone, just a 45. Going to establish them all, get them relatively close, and just lightly touch them on the 45 with the stone. When I get done with them, I'll show you. They're acceptable, but I still like stones. This machine's old and it does a pretty decent job most of the time, but when they're hardened seats like this, that inducted hardened head, sometimes, and some of the old winter heads, the old GM winter snowflake aluminum heads, them seats, I don't know what they did with them, but some seats cut decent and some seats don't, and we could probably try a different cutter. I've tried different oils and alcohol and lacquer thinner and all sorts of stuff to spray on them, and it don't seem to matter a whole heck of a lot, to be honest with you. But we got the gauge set, so we'll come down on it, and when I hit 0, we'll stop. Hopefully we'll get them all. These valves weren't sunk into the seats any, so I don't think the seats aren't hammered out very much on these heads, so they should clean up pretty decent. I checked a few valves just for the heck of it with the old seats, and they're not too far off. They look pretty damn good. I don't know if the brake cleaner works good, but it smells good. I'm running a carbide Pilot. This is 3/8. Probably could get away with not using it, but I have it, so I'm going to use it. Looks good. We'll touch them just a little bit with a stone, though. We'll do the next one, and then I'll set up for the intake. You don't need to watch me do this. It's all pretty much the same. Okay, I'm going to zero out my gauge. See how close we got them relative to the deck. This one could be 2/1000 deeper. This one's looking about 1.5. Yeah, this one could go just a little bit deeper. We'll touch up that one and we'll finish them, and then we'll move on to the intake. Okay, I got them all cut. And like I said, I'll probably touch these up with a stone on the 45. Everything else looks pretty good as far as setup height and everything from the deck. They're all real close. So within 2000s, which is plenty good enough for adjustable valve train. So I think we're going to call this one a wrap, and then I'll be milling these heads and then assembling them. Thank you for watching. If you like, hit the like button, and if you don't like, don't hit no buttons. Please subscribe. It doesn't cost nothing. Thanks for watching.